She was trembling, tears blurring her vision, her fingers shaking as she dialed a number she didn't even recognize. Every heartbeat screamed panic, every thought screamed regret, but she couldn't stop herself. And then, a voice answered. A stranger's voice. Calm, deep, impossibly warm. Her sobs caught in her throat. She tried to hang up. She wanted to run. But the way he said her name, even though he shouldn't have known it, stopped her cold. Something about him reached into the cracks of her loneliness, the corners of her fear, and made her feel seen. She thought it was a mistake, a wrong number. But every second that followed made her question everything she knew about love, trust, and fate. Could she risk letting him in? Or would opening her heart destroy her completely? Hi, my beautiful family. I have missed you all. Thank you so for sticking around with me. I truly appreciate your love and support. If you're already hooked in for today's story and ready to enjoy it, click subscribe and let me know in the comments where you're watching from. Because, tomorrow, I will be giving you another story just as interesting as this one. And you don't want to miss it. Now let us begin. Imani Brooks sat on the edge of her bed, the weight of the day pressing down on her shoulders. The city outside her Charleston apartment hummed with spring life, but she felt completely disconnected from it. Her phone trembled in her hand. One wrong decision, one wrong step, and suddenly, she'd been pushed to the edge. She wasn't usually like this. Imani prided herself on keeping control, on solving problems with her own two hands. But tonight, exhaustion had stripped her defenses away, leaving her raw and shaking. On impulse, she dialed a number she thought belonged to a friend. Tears blurred her vision as she whispered, "Please, someone, talk to me." "Hello." A calm, measured voice answered. "This isn't, wait, are you okay?" Imani froze. She hadn't expected anyone to answer, certainly not someone so gentle and attentive. The voice belonged to a man, deep, steady, and somehow grounding. I don't know," she admitted, her voice cracking. "It's just, everything's too much tonight." There was a pause. Then he said softly, "You're not alone. I can listen, if you want." The warmth in his voice was immediate. Imani, normally wary of strangers, felt the walls she'd built around herself crumble just enough to let this unknown man in. "I'm Imani," she whispered. "Elliot," he replied. "Elliot Harrington. You don't have to explain. Just breathe." That's a start. And somehow, breathing with him, even through the phone, felt like the first step back toward herself. Over the next hour, Imani found herself speaking in fragments, about her job, the pressures she carried, the lonely apartment that suddenly felt suffocating. Elliot listened without judgment, offering gentle reassurances, subtle humor, even the occasional sharp insight that made her pause and think. By the time she hung up, her tears had dried, but a small, unexpected flutter lingered in her chest. She didn't know it yet, but this accidental call was the first thread tying her life to someone she had never met, a thread that would grow into something far deeper than either of them imagined. As she set her phone down, Imani smiled faintly. Maybe life had a strange way of reminding her that help could come from the most unexpected places. But for Elliot, sitting in his Carmel penthouse and staring at the half-empty glass of scotch on his desk, the conversation had left an imprint too. He couldn't explain why he felt drawn to this woman he'd never seen. All he knew was that something had shifted, a quiet, undeniable spark that demanded attention. And in that quiet moment, neither of them realized just how entangled their lives were about to become. Imani sat at her kitchen table the next morning, nursing a mug of coffee that had long gone cold. Her phone buzzed on the counter, and for a moment, she hesitated. Then she saw it, a message from an unknown number. "I hope it's okay, but I'd like to meet you in person. Elliot." Her chest tightened. Meeting someone she'd never seen felt reckless. But something in the way his words lingered, calm and sincere, tugged at her curiosity. She typed back slowly, fingers hovering over the keyboard. I suppose we could. Coffee. Tomorrow. Tomorrow it is, came the quick reply. Meanwhile, hundreds of miles away, Elliot Harrington was reviewing a new development project in his sleek Carmel office. His wealth was undeniable, expansive penthouse, luxury cars lined in the garage, and a calendar packed with high-profile business meetings. Yet none of it had prepared him for the pull he felt toward a woman he'd never met, someone whose vulnerability had somehow mirrored parts of himself he rarely showed. He thought about the way Imani's voice had cracked, the quiet determination under her trembling words. She was strong, yet fragile in a way that made him want to protect her, but not smother her. He admired that balance. Imani arrived 15 minutes early, letting herself breathe in the spring air. She had spent hours debating her outfit, opting for a soft lavender blouse paired with tailored slacks, professional, approachable, yet comfortable. She sipped her coffee nervously, glancing at the entrance each time the door opened. Then she saw him. Elliot Harrington walked in, unmistakably calm, dressed in a crisp white shirt and navy blazer. The aura of wealth followed him subtly, not overtly, but through confidence, posture, and the quiet ease with which he surveyed the room. Their eyes met, and for a moment, the world seemed to shrink. Imani's heart raced, not just from attraction, but from the realization that the voice that had soothed her fears was now a man standing before her, real and tangible. "Imani?" he asked, his voice low, familiar, but carrying that same grounding quality she remembered. "Yes," she breathed, standing to greet him. They shook hands briefly, then sat. Words flowed more easily than either expected. Elliot was warm but respectful, asking about her work, her family, her passions. Imani laughed freely, something she hadn't done in days. And for the first time in weeks, she allowed herself to relax. Between sips of coffee and shy smiles, Elliot subtly revealed glimpses of his life. Stories of the projects he managed, travels he'd taken, and the rare quiet moments he treasured. He spoke with confidence, but without arrogance, a wealth that impressed without intimidating. Imani found herself intrigued, not just by his success, but by the person beneath it. "You know," she said after a pause, "I didn't expect that calling a wrong number could lead to this." Elliot smiled, his eyes twinkling. Life's full of accidents that feel deliberate once you look back. For a moment, they shared a laugh, light but meaningful. And in that laugh, a connection deeper than words began to form. Imani walked out of the coffee shop, her notebook clutched against her chest, and tried to steady her racing heart. The spring breeze lifted her hair, and with each step, she replayed the moments with Elliot Harrington, his warm smile, the way he listened without judgment, the subtle brush of his hand. She shook her head, half laughing at herself. It was only coffee. That's all. But her phone buzzed again. Walked safely back? I can't say this enough, but I really enjoyed today. Elliot. Imani's fingers hovered over the keyboard. She wanted to reply casually, not betray the flutter in her chest. I did. Me too. She typed it, then deleted it. Finally, she settled on, yes. Me too. Thank you. Elliot, meanwhile, returned to his Carmel penthouse, pacing slightly, a rare frown of frustration on his face. Not at work, never work, but at himself. He didn't usually let a fleeting connection distract him. And yet, something about Imani's voice, her laughter, the way she had been genuinely herself. It lingered in his mind. Elliot had flown down, insisting they meet again. Imani hesitated but agreed, curious and undeniably drawn to him. The park was quiet, the early spring sun soft on the grass. Children played in the distance. Couples strolled hand in hand. You really like this city, don't you? Elliot asked, walking beside her. I do, Imani admitted. It's grounded, familiar, feels like home. He nodded, then glanced at her, his expression softening. I can see why. It suits you. Imani felt a rush of warmth, almost embarrassed by how easily he could make her heart race. They walked in companionable silence, yet the air between them hummed with unspoken tension, the kind that makes ordinary moments feel electric. At a quiet bench overlooking the small pond, they sat. Elliot pulled out a small paper cup of lemonade, handing one to Imani. To wrong numbers that turn into this, he said lightly, lifting his cup. Imani laughed, clinking her cup to his. To this, she echoed. They talked for hours, sharing stories and vulnerabilities. Elliot admitted the loneliness his wealth sometimes brought, the pressure to maintain appearances, the rare moments when no one saw past the surface. Imani shared struggles at work, moments when she felt overlooked, and nights when exhaustion almost crushed her spirit. At one point, a sudden gust of wind swept a few leaves onto the pond. Imani bent down to pick one up, and Elliot instinctively reached for her hand to steady her. Their fingers touched, lingered. Neither pulled away immediately. Imani started, then stopped, caught off guard by the electricity of the contact. Elliot simply smiled, the kind that reached his eyes. "It's okay," he said softly. "I like being close to you." Her heart thudded painfully in her chest, caught between disbelief and hope. Something was growing here, something real, despite how sudden it felt. As the sun dipped lower, casting long golden shadows across the park, Elliot offered to walk her home. Imani hesitated but nodded, aware that each step beside him felt like walking toward something she hadn't realized she wanted so badly. Imani stared at her phone, heart still racing from yesterday's interrupted farewell. Elliot's message was simple. "Tomorrow night. Let me take you somewhere special." She hesitated, running through every possible excuse. Work was piling up, her apartment still needed attention, and her mind told her she should say no. But another part of her, the one that still remembered the warmth of his voice, the light in his eyes, nudged her forward. "Okay," she finally typed. "Tomorrow." Elliot had arranged something casual yet thoughtful, a small rooftop terrace overlooking the Charleston waterfront. String lights twinkled overhead, and the soft lapping of water against the docks created a calming soundtrack. "You didn't have to do all this," Imani said, taking in the view. "I wanted to," Elliot replied simply. "It's easier to talk when the world feels a little smaller." She smiled, noticing how effortlessly he balanced sophistication with comfort. The terrace wasn't extravagant, it didn't need to be, but it reflected his attention to detail and desire to create moments, not just impress. They ate, laughed, and shared stories. Imani spoke about the challenges of her career, the long nights, the times she felt overlooked. Elliot listened intently, nodding, asking questions, occasionally offering his own stories of pressures and solitude. It wasn't just talk, it was connection. At one point, Imani brushed a strand of hair from her face, and Elliot caught her hand. "You don't have to hide anything here," he murmured. Her heart skipped. The gesture was simple, protective, yet tender. She felt seen. Really seen. As the night deepened, Elliot asked about family. Imani's expression softened as she spoke of her ma and siblings, sharing anecdotes of growing up in Charleston. Elliot shared glimpses of his own life, carefully choosing moments that revealed the man behind the wealth. "You know," Imani said quietly, "sometimes it's exhausting pretending I've got everything under control." Elliot reached out, lightly squeezing her hand. "I get that. I do. And you don't have to pretend with me." She looked at him, searching his face, and for the first time, allowed herself to believe he meant it. The night ended with a walk along the waterfront. Lights reflected in the water, wind tousling their hair. Elliot stopped at a quiet bench, turning to face her. "I feel like I've known you longer than a few days," he said softly. "Me too," Imani admitted, heart pounding. Elliot leaned in, brushing a strand of hair behind her ear, his thumb tracing a gentle line along her cheek. It wasn't rushed, wasn't forced, it was intentional, careful, but charged with undeniable tension. She didn't pull back. Instead, she leaned slightly into the gesture, letting the moment linger. The connection between them deepened silently, a promise of something more, though neither spoke it aloud yet. The fluorescent lights of Imani's office were harsh, cold, and utterly unlike the soft glow of the waterfront the night before. She sat at her desk, typing half-heartedly, mind replaying Elliot's gentle touch and the warmth in his eyes. Her phone buzzed with messages from coworkers, but all she could hear was the quiet memory of him leaning close, thumb brushing her cheek. She sighed, leaning back in her chair. Why does someone I've known for barely a week feel like home? Later that evening, as she packed up her things, A soft knock echoed through her apartment doorway. Before she could answer, the door opened, and there he was, Elliot, holding a small bouquet of wildflowers. "I know work called you back," he said, voice calm but warm. "I thought, maybe I could bring a little spring to your night." Imani blinked, taken aback. "You brought flowers?" "Not just any flowers," Elliot said, handing them to her. "These are for the woman who called a wrong number and somehow made a man across the country care." Her chest tightened. The words, the gesture, the sincerity, it all hit her at once. She laughed softly, a mix of surprise and delight. "You're ridiculous." "Only for you," he replied, his eyes softening. They settled on the small balcony outside her apartment, city lights twinkling below. They talked, really talked, about fears, dreams, and the moments that shaped them. Imani revealed her insecurities about work, her lingering self-doubt despite professional accomplishments. Elliot shared the pressures of his wealth, the loneliness that sometimes crept in despite his success. The vulnerability was intoxicating. Neither felt judged. Both felt understood. "I never thought I'd meet someone like you," Elliot murmured, reaching for her hand. "Someone who sees me." Imani felt her throat tighten. I feel the same way." The air between them shifted. Hands brushed, then intertwined, fingers lacing together naturally. Elliot leaned closer, hesitating for just a heartbeat, giving her the choice. Imani's breath caught as she tilted her face toward his. Their lips met, softly at first, exploring, tentative, then more assured, a spark igniting that neither could deny. Time seemed to pause. The city sounds faded. All that existed was the warmth of each other, the hum of attraction, and the unspoken promise that this was just the beginning. When they finally pulled back, Imani rested her forehead against his. "I've never felt like this before," she whispered. "Neither have I," Elliot admitted, eyes locking with hers. "And I don't want it to end." The weekend arrived with a heavy spring rain that pattered against Imani's Charleston apartment window. She sat at her desk, reviewing notes for a high-stakes project at work, but her mind kept drifting to Elliot. Their balcony kiss, the warmth of his hand in hers, the way he had made her feel truly seen, it lingered, making it almost impossible to focus. Her phone buzzed. A message from Elliot. "Thinking about you. Can I call?" Imani hesitated. She wanted to say yes, but a deep sense of unease crept in. Her workload was overwhelming, and there was that lingering worry about introducing him to her family, navigating her career pressures, and protecting her independence. She finally typed, "I can't talk right now. Busy with work. Rainy weekend vibes, I guess." Elliot read the message, his chest tightening slightly. He understood, but it stung, a small reminder that even growing attraction had to coexist with real-life obstacles. Later that afternoon, Imani received a frantic call from her supervisor. A client issue had escalated, and she was urgently needed at the office. The timing couldn't have been worse. Elliot had planned a weekend visit, and now she would have to cancel. She texted him reluctantly. "I'm so sorry. Work's a mess. Can we reschedule?" Within minutes, Elliot replied, "I understand. But I'll wait. Don't worry about me. You're handling what matters." Imani felt guilty. She hated disappointing him, but she also couldn't ignore her responsibilities. That evening, Imani's ma called. "Imani, your dad's old friend is visiting Charleston. We'd love for you to join us for dinner tomorrow." Imani's stomach knotted. She wanted to say yes, but the timing clashed with both her work obligations and her budding romance. More than that, introducing Elliot to her family so soon felt daunting. I'll see what I can do, Ma," she replied cautiously, already anticipating the internal tug-of-war. She hung up and stared at her phone. Elliot's last message flashed, "I'll be here whenever you're ready." Her heart ached. She wanted him with her, yet every responsibility, every expectation seemed to push him further away. Across the country, Elliot sat in his Carmel penthouse, reviewing his calendar for upcoming meetings. He wanted to rush to Charleston, to reassure Imani that he wasn't going anywhere, but he knew better. Pressuring her now would only create distance. Instead, he poured himself a glass of scotch and stared out at the city lights, thinking about how unpredictable life could be. He didn't just want her presence, he wanted her comfort, her trust, her choice to let him in fully. Imani spent a restless night, torn between obligation and desire. She wanted to see Elliot again, to feel the connection that had ignited so quickly, yet every part of her practical self cautioned patience. She realized that this, balancing love, career, and family, was going to be more complicated than she anticipated. And Elliot, despite his wealth, charm, and confidence, couldn't simply remove the obstacles life had placed in their paths. The spring sun barely broke through Charleston's morning clouds, and Imani hurried along the wet sidewalks, still thinking about the photo Elliot had sent the night before. A single red tulip in his hand, standing outside her favorite bookstore, it was romantic, persistent, almost impossible to resist. Her phone buzzed again. Another message. Coffee after work? I'll wait. Imani paused, her chest tightening. She wanted to reply yes, more than anything, but obligations and lingering doubts held her back. Could she really let someone into her life so fully, so quickly? Could she trust that he'd understand the chaos of her world without judging her? The day at the office dragged. A client issue she had been managing for weeks exploded into a crisis. Emails, calls, and urgent meetings consumed her, leaving her drained and anxious. She glanced at her phone repeatedly, thinking about Elliot standing outside her favorite bookstore just hours ago, wondering if he'd leave, wondering if her delay meant rejection. Her co-worker nudged her. You've been distracted all morning. Everything okay? Imani forced a smile. Yeah, just a lot going on. The truth was, she was torn, her heart tugging toward Elliot, while her professional responsibilities screamed for undivided attention. Elliot, waiting outside the bookstore, felt the minutes stretch endlessly. He had wanted only a few moments with Imani, a chance to see her, to remind her that she wasn't alone. But as the hours passed and no reply came, worry began to creep in. He knew she was independent, strong, and career-driven, but he also understood that sometimes people let doubt get in the way of happiness. Standing in the rain, tulip in hand, Elliot silently promised himself, I won't give up on her. Not now. Not ever. By evening, Imani finally stepped out of her office, exhausted and emotionally drained. She scrolled through her messages and saw Elliot's persistence. Multiple texts, each polite, each patient, each expressing care without pressure. Her heart ached. She wanted to respond, wanted to run into his arms, but self-doubt whispered, maybe he deserves someone who can give him her full attention, not this chaos. She typed a short reply. I'm so sorry. Work's been intense. Can we talk tomorrow? Elliot's reply came quickly, warm yet understanding. Tomorrow. I'll be here. I want to see you when it's right for you. It was comforting, but also a reminder of how much effort it took to maintain the connection. Imani's ma called that night. Honey, I know you're busy, but relationships require time. Don't let someone slip away because life got hectic. Imani sighed. Her mother's words were well-meaning, but they only added pressure. She loved Elliot, she thought, perhaps more than she wanted to admit, but the obstacles seemed relentless. Work, family, responsibilities, and self-doubt threatened to push him away before anything deeper could bloom. Meanwhile, Elliot reflected on their short time together. His heart pulled him closer to Imani, yet he respected her space. The tension was unbearable, the distance small yet immense. He knew the next move, her choice, would determine if their connection could survive. Imani sat at her kitchen table, staring blankly at her laptop. The spring rain had returned, washing Charleston streets in gray streaks. Her coffee had long gone cold, untouched, as her mind replayed the events of the past week. Elliot's persistence, his patience, his gentle care, it had worn down the walls she thought she'd carefully built. And yet, life seemed determined to test her. A notification pinged. She opened an email from her company's legal department. A serious client dispute had escalated overnight. Immediate attention was required. Every instinct told her to dive in, bury herself in work, and forget about everything else. But her phone buzzed again, a text from Elliot. Imani, I understand work is consuming you. I miss you. Her chest tightened. She wanted to reply, to reassure him, but her mind raced with anxiety. Could she really let herself prioritize love over responsibility? Could she allow herself to feel happiness without fearing the consequences? Later that evening, exhausted and drained, Imani returned home to find Elliot's red tulip still in her apartment, left at the doorstep earlier. Her heart softened at the gesture, yet a pang of guilt struck. He shouldn't be waiting for me. I can't ask him to constantly adjust for my life. She sent a short, almost cold text. Elliot, I think, maybe we need some space. Things are complicated right now. The moment she pressed send, regret washed over her. But she couldn't take it back. Elliot read the message, his heart sinking. He had sensed her stress but never imagined she would pull away so abruptly. The words stung, yet he understood her reasoning. Still, his mind refused to accept distance as the answer. He stared out over the Carmel skyline, tulip in hand from his trip down south, thinking of her laugh, her vulnerability, the spark that had ignited in just a few days. He refused to let go, not without fighting, not without giving her the chance to see what they could truly have together. Imani, meanwhile, tried to bury herself in work, but the space between her and Elliot gnawed at her. Every message she ignored, every late-night thought, reminded her of how much she had come to rely on him, not just as a romantic interest, but as someone who truly understood her. She went for a late-night walk along the Charleston waterfront, phone in hand, thinking she might just delete his number entirely to protect herself. The moonlight shimmered on the water, reflecting the turmoil inside her. She realized that trying to control everything, work, family, emotions, had left her isolated. And for the first time, she admitted to herself, she wanted him. She wanted them. Imani sat on the edge of her bed, staring at her phone. Rain streaked her Charleston window, mirroring the storm inside her chest. Elliot's message, I'm coming to see you. Don't run, glowed on the screen. Her mind raced. He's persistent. He'll be disappointed. He deserves someone fully present. I can't let him wait. Her finger hovered over the delete button. She wanted to protect him, protect herself, protect the fragile spark they had built. And yet, she couldn't press it. The knock came before she could decide. Heart pounding, she opened the door to find him standing there, slightly damp from the spring drizzle, but eyes unwavering and warm. In his hand, a single red tulip, the same one from days before. Imani, he said softly, voice steady despite the tension. Please, just talk to me. Her chest tightened. She wanted to slam the door, to retreat into the safety of her independent life, but something in his expression, hope, patience, unwavering care, stopped her. Elliot, it's complicated, she whispered. He stepped closer, careful not to crowd her. I know. Life's complicated. But I want to be here. For all of it. For you. Imani's defenses crumbled. Tears slipped down her cheeks. I don't want to hold you back. My life, it's a mess sometimes. Work, family. I can't promise I'll make it easy. Elliot took her hands in his, gentle but firm. I don't want easy. I want real. I want you. Messy or not, I'm not going anywhere. The weight of his words sank in. The longing, the connection, the vulnerability, they were undeniable. She realized that every doubt, every hesitation, had been fear disguised as responsibility. For the first time, Imani let herself breathe. She looked into Elliot's eyes and saw the same longing, the same desire to bridge the distance between them. I want this too, she admitted, voice trembling. I've been so scared of losing myself that I forgot to let myself feel. Elliot's lips curved into a soft, reassuring smile. Then don't be scared. Not with me. The next morning, Charleston streets were bathed in soft golden light, the rain having left everything sparkling and fresh. Imani still couldn't shake the memory of the previous night, Elliot's unwavering gaze, the way he had held her hands, the quiet words that had reached deep into her heart. But life had its demands. Work, family obligations, the weight of her own self-imposed caution, it all pressed down on her, reminding her that love could not exist in isolation. Then came a knock at her apartment door. Imani opened it to find not just Elliot, but a small caravan of surprises waiting outside. Flowers arranged along the walkway, a handwritten note perched on a table, and a bouquet of her favorite lilies in his hands. "Imani," Elliot said softly, stepping closer, eyes fixed on hers. "I know life is complicated. I know you have responsibilities, doubts, fears. But I also know that what we have, what we feel, is worth every risk." Her chest tightened, tears welling. "Elliot," she whispered, but no words could capture the storm of emotions inside her. Elliot gestured toward the table, where a small card read, "Follow me." He led her to a waiting horse-drawn carriage, decorated with soft lights and flowers. The same city she had walked countless times felt transformed, magical. "I wanted to show you that moments like this, we can create them, even in the chaos," Elliot said, voice low, warm. "I want to be part of your life, not despite the mess, but alongside it." Imani's heart swelled. Here was a man who had taken the time to understand her, to meet her halfway, to show that love didn't need to erase life's complexities, it could exist within them. As the carriage rolled through Charleston's streets, Imani finally allowed herself to relax completely. She rested her head on Elliot's shoulder, feeling the steadiness of his presence. For the first time, she didn't feel torn between obligations and desire. She simply let herself feel. I think I've been waiting for this without even knowing it," she murmured. Elliot kissed the top of her head gently. "Then let's not waste another moment." 4 hours, they rode through the city, talking, laughing, and simply being together. The barriers of doubt, fear, and distance began to crumble, replaced by a quiet certainty. This was real. This connection, the spark, the vulnerability, the understanding, was worth every complication life could throw their way. The morning sun glinted over Charleston's waterfront as Imani stepped out of her apartment. Heart racing with anticipation. Last night's carriage ride had left her breathless, but it was Elliot's promise that lingered, the invitation to see something deeply personal, something that mattered to him. She found him waiting at the pier, casual yet magnetic, a small canvas bag in one hand and a mischievous glint in his eyes. "You made it," he said softly, voice carrying both relief and joy. "I did," Imani replied, smiling despite the flutter in her chest. "I wasn't going to let you down." Elliot stepped closer, taking her hand gently. "You've already given me more than you know, just by being here." They walked along the pier, Elliot sharing pieces of his life beyond wealth and business. The hidden gardens he had nurtured, the small art studio where he painted on weekends, the quiet library where he lost himself in old books. Each place revealed a side of him he rarely shared, and Imani felt honored to witness it. "You're really different than I imagined," she admitted, her thumb brushing over his knuckles. "Different good, I hope," he said with a playful smirk. "Not scary different." Imani laughed softly, leaning into him. "Definitely good different." They stopped at the edge of the water, the gentle waves reflecting the morning light. Elliot turned to her, expression serious now, yet soft. "Imani, I need you to know something," he said. "These past days, I've never felt this connected to anyone. Not like this. You've opened something in me I didn't think existed." Imani's chest tightened. She had felt the same. This connection was undeniable, transformative. "I feel it too," she admitted. "And it scares me, because it's real." He took both her hands in his gaze unwavering. "Real isn't always easy. But I promise, I'm not going anywhere. We'll face everything together." Tears welled in Imani's eyes, not of sorrow, but of relief, joy, and surrender. She realized that her fear of complications no longer mattered. She wanted this, wanted him and the possibility of them. Elliot pulled her close, forehead to forehead. Imani, would you let me be part of your life? All of it. She nodded, voice trembling but certain. Yes. I want us. No more holding back. They kissed, not softly this time, but with a quiet urgency, the culmination of weeks of tension, longing, and vulnerability. In that embrace, all doubts melted away. For the first time, Imani allowed herself to believe that love didn't have to be perfect to be real, it just had to be chosen. The sun had just begun to set over Charleston's waterfront, painting the sky in shades of gold and rose. Imani followed Elliot along the pier, heart pounding with anticipation. The canvas bag he had brought earlier swung lightly in his hand, hinting at the final surprise he had promised. Imani, thank you for trusting me, he said, voice low, warm. For letting us happen, even with everything else in your life. Imani smiled softly, fingers brushing his. It wasn't easy. But, being with you feels right. Elliot led her to a secluded spot at the end of the pier, where lanterns had been carefully set along the walkway. Soft music played from hidden speakers, the gentle sound of waves mingling with the melody. He stopped, turned to her, and took her hands in his. Imani Brooks, he began, his eyes shining. From the moment you called that wrong number in tears, my life changed. You've shown me vulnerability, courage, and love in ways I never thought possible. I don't want another day without you by my side. From the bag, he retrieved a small velvet box. Imani's breath caught as he knelt. Will you marry me? Tears streamed down her cheeks, joy and relief overwhelming her. Yes. Yes, Elliot, she cried, throwing her arms around him. He stood, slipping the ring onto her finger, and they kissed as the lanterns flickered, the water glimmering around them. 2 weeks later, Charleston's gardens bloomed with spring vibrancy, echoing the blossoming love of the couple. Imani's ma smiled as she watched her daughter and Elliot laugh together, the easy intimacy and deep affection between them undeniable. Their wedding was simple yet elegant, intimate yet full of warmth, reflecting the journey that had brought them together. Chance, vulnerability, persistence, and trust. Elliot's thoughtful gestures and Imani's independent spirit had merged into a partnership built on mutual respect and love. At the reception, Imani leaned into Elliot, whispering, I still can't believe a wrong number led me here. Elliot smiled, kissing her temple. Sometimes the wrong number is exactly what we need. They held hands, hearts full, ready to navigate life together. Messy, complicated, and beautiful. Their love story had begun in tears, but it would flourish in joy, trust, and unwavering devotion.
Thank you for watching this story to the end. If you enjoyed this story, you will surely love the next one. It's as crazier and more intriguing as you can ever imagine. So do check it out. Click on the image showing on your screen right now to watch the next one.